My name is Veronica and I hope you enjoy this video.
So these rules only apply to multiplication and division. And the first rule is, if you have a negative number and you multiply by a positive number, your result will be a negative. So if you have two numbers, one is a negative, the answer will be negative. I've got three very simple problems here, 1, 2, 3, and you will see only one of them has a negative sign. All right, the other factor is positive. So you just do it normally. 1 times 2, 2, right? But if we use this rule, one of them is a negative, so your answer will be a negative. 2 times 2 is 4. Answer is a negative. Your answer is negative because one of the factors is a negative. 3 times 3, 9. One of the factors is a negative. Okay? If ever you want to quickly check an equation to see if you're on the right track, if you've got the right answer, you just work backwards. So whatever rule you use to go that way, you use the opposite to go this way. So you use multiply to get to the answer, you use divide to get back this side. So at this point, we've just done multiplication, but later on you'll see divide is similar. So if one of them is a negative, the answer will be a negative. So let's just quickly check these, just so you get used to checking your answer. -2, divide by 2. So 2 on top of 2 is 1, right? Any number on top of itself is 1. 100 on top of 100 is 1. 50 on top of 50 is 1. 1 million on top of a million. I mean, on top of means divide by, because you're writing it, one number is on top of the other number. Or over, there you also use the word over. So 2 over 2, 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1. -2 divided by 2 is equal to 1, and the sign is negative because one of these two numbers is negative. But we'll get to that rule later. I'm just showing you that you can work backwards. This way was multiply, you can divide to get back to the first number. -4 divided by 2 is -2, and that works out. So the answer is correct. -9 divided by 3 is equal to -3. So this answer is correct. Second rule is what happens when you have two negative numbers multiplying. The rule is, if you have a negative, you multiply by another negative, magic, you get the positive. So the negatives cancel each other out and you get a positive. So I've used more or less the same numbers as before, except here both factors are negative. Factor 1 and factor 2 are both negative. Okay, so 1 times 2 is 2. What is the sign? 2 negatives. So that's a positive. I don't have to write a positive sign because we know if there's no sign there, then it's a positive. 2 2s are 4. 2 negatives here. I don't have to show that it's a positive there because we know when there's no sign, it's a positive. 3 3s, 9. 2 negatives gives you a positive. Negative multiplied by another negative number, you get a positive number. Now that rule applies when you have pairs of negatives, right? So for every 2 negatives, you'll get a positive. What if with these negative numbers you have more than 2? What happens is, if you remember the first rule, every time you have a negative and a positive that multiply, you end up with a negative number. So I'll show you what I mean if we're thinking about the first rule again. So These are the same problems as before, except at the beginning, let me add -1. Okay, make it very simple. Now you have 3 negatives. You have an odd number of negatives. So, like I was saying before, every time you have a pair of negatives, they give a positive. When it's not a pair, when it's an odd number, then you will end up with the opposite. Okay. So 1 times 2 is 2, times 1 is still 2, right? But these 2 negatives will cancel each other out to give a positive. And now that you have the positive 2 out of that, positive 2 times -1 will give you a -2. So this is using rule number 2, but out of this you will get a positive 2, and then you multiply the positive 2 with the -1, and you're reverting to the first rule where only one of them is negative. Okay, let's go on to the second one. -2 gives you a 4, right? Put a small 4 there, gives you a positive 4, because negative and negative gives you a positive. But now we're going to rule 1, where the positive 4 is multiplied by -1, and you get negative. So negative times a positive gives you a negative. Third one, 3 3s are 9. These 2 negatives gives you a positive. It's positive 9. If you multiply it by -1, and it gives you a negative 9. Okay, the third rule goes into division. So what happens when you're dividing 2 numbers and one of them is a negative? It doesn't matter whether it's the number on the top, on the bottom that is the negative. If one of them is negative, just like with multiplication, if one of the 2 is negative, then the answer is going to be negative. So here I have 3 simple examples again. Very easy for you to work out, but only one is a negative. Here I've got the numerator as a negative. The denominators here are all positive numbers. So 2 divided by 1 is 2, because any number over 1 remains the same. So 100 over 1 is equal to 100. 200 over 1 is equal to 200. Yeah. So 2 over 1 is equal to 2. And what sign is in front of this 2? Well, it will be negative, because only one of these 2 numbers is negative. 4 divided by 2, right? Only one is negative, so the sign will be negative. 9 divided by 3, only one is negative, the numerator, so the answer will be 3. As we did in the earlier examples, you can check. So we did divide to get to this answer, and to check, you multiply to get back to the top. Let's try it. -2 or -2 times 1 is equal to -2. Okay, that's correct. -2 multiplied by 2 will give you -4. Just remember, a negative multiplied by a positive gives a negative answer. You have a -3 multiplied by a 3 gives you a -9 again. Rule number 4 is similar to rule number 2 in multiplication, right? So with rule number 2, if you're multiplying 2 negative numbers, you got a positive result. Here, if you're dividing 2 negative numbers, you also get a positive result. So the 2 negative numbers cancel each other out. Okay, so I'm using similar example as the first, as the previous screen, but here both the denominator and the numerator are negative. So both the numbers are negative. 2 divided by 1 is 2. What is the sign? Well, the two negatives cancel each other out. Negative divided by negative is a positive, right? Positive 2. 4 divided by 2, also 2. Negative negative gives you a positive. 9 divided by 3, 3. Negative negative gives you a positive. Now, you want to check your answer. You divide it by to get here, and you multiply to get up there. 3 times negative 3, negative 9, right? Because 3 3s are 9. And what is the sign? Well, one of these two is negative. It's positive here, negative here. So the answer is a negative because there was at least one out of the two which was negative. Not at least, sorry, there's one out of the two. Here, 2 times negative 2 is equal to negative 4. So that answer is also correct. 2 multiplied by 1 is equal to 2. And what is the sign? One of these two is a negative, and the answer is a negative. So that too is correct, right? I hope that's been helpful. I'll be uploading more videos with slightly more complex applications of these same 4 rules, just so that you get more practice and you can fully understand why it's useful. This is a very simple rule, but you will apply these same rules many, many, many times in all sorts of different problems.
If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and hit the playlist to find similar videos.